The Ministry of Reconstruction, as we call it, appeared a year ago. In the wartime, it's a long period. In peaceful time, we would say 1 year old. The ministry is not a long time, but for us it's quite enough time to report for our activities. I would like to call Deputy Prime Minister for Restoration, Oleksandr Kubrakov, Member of Parliament, Olena, Shuliak, Head of Verkhovna Rada Committee for Organization of State Power, Yurii, Vaskov, Deputy Minister Evgeny, Liashchenko, Chairman of the Board of Ukrzaliznytsia, and Mustafa, Nayyem, Head of the State Agency for Restoration. So this will be the composition of the first session, which will last for 50 minutes, and at 12:10 we'll invite you for a coffee break. And I'll give the floor to Oleksandr Kubrakov, Deputy Prime Minister for Restoration of Ukraine. Good morning, dear colleagues. I apologize for the delay. You mentioned about Kyivstar, and we had a meeting which just finished on that topic. I hope in a few hours it will recover this. I worked for 10 years in the past, so I wish my colleagues success, because many people depend on them. And I'd like to thank our partners. Today we'll discuss many things and present many things. All those results, practically under all projects, would not be possible without your support. I'll try to be brief. I see the timing, and we started later. 2022 was a year of survival. It's the start of the war, evacuation, and recovery of transport links in the occupied areas, military logistics and export logistics, grain deal, all that we had last year. The time passes very fast. It appears that it was in our previous life, but there was a grain initiative which was signed last year, in the middle of last year, and we relaunched our export routes, export logistics, and we revalued all those things. 2023 was the year of recovery and infrastructure recovery, because we started focusing on a few construction restoration projects. It's housing recovery. We will talk about that and give you figures. Critical infrastructure, of course, these were the response to Kakhovka HPP breach and protection from rocket and drone attacks, recovery of energy infrastructure, facilities, heating facilities, regional infrastructure. We had various projects with various OFIs participating and donors, but we launched that process. And the seaports, launch of Ukrainian corridor, which is operational at the moment, and development of the Danube port cluster. Export logistics, I will not focus a lot on that slide, but we have to reconfigure everything, because our key destinations or directions, main exports were done through the seaports. Now our western border is more important. We had a transit via Belarus to Baltic countries, to Scandinavian countries. All that stopped, and the model now completely reconfigured. Ukrainian corridor, we are approaching 9 million tons of export volumes, which about 70% is agricultural commodities. The dynamics are really positive. We are satisfied with it, and we hope we will be able to support that rate, or maybe we'll expand it, and colleagues will talk about it. Border crossing with Poland. We hope that the situation is being solved. It's not easy. The strike is still continues, but the road is not blocked. We are achieving figures which we had before blocking 2,060 trucks passed the border crossing in a day. So these are the figures which we had before the blocking. I hope other BCPs will be unblocked also. Just to finalize about Greater Odessa ports, we understand that the effect of renewal of the operation will contribute to up to 8% additional GDP, because our key industries, metallurgy and agricultural, are not operating at full capacity. If we take figures before the war, housing, reconstruction of housing. We have e-recovery, we have minor repairs, major repairs, and capital repairs. We started paying out last week. First, hundreds of thousands of people got those payments, and certificates for destroyed property and capital repairs of multi-apartment buildings. Well, there are a lot of programs. We have 24 United European Investment Bank and the Fund for Relief of Armed Aggression. We are talking about thousands buildings all over Ukraine which are being restored. They are the leading regions, of course, those which were affected the most from the Russian aggression. This Kharkiv, Kyiv, Mykolaiv, Kherson, Donetsk. Of course, we are seeing that there are 63,000 application files, and over 2 billion have been paid. Housing certificates, that's what we are launching today. 72,000 is filed, and so the start was launched. Actually, it happens today. Critical infrastructure, without going into details. The first facilities were completed for the second level of protection, and we started it last year. We're collaborating with Ukrenergo, with other partners. The critical infrastructure, construction of water pipelines. This is the response to the breach of Kakhovka Dam. We are talking why it's critically important, because this will provide with water more than 1 million people. It's 1.5 million people. That's true. This southern part of Dnipro region, all those industrial cities, Pokrov, Marganets, Kryvyi Rih, all of them depend on the water supply from those pipelines. The water pipeline to Kryvyi Rih was partially solved. We will finalize, we will complete those facilities, and we will commission them soon. It's a big project. It's not only humanitarian but also economic, because that part of our country is contributes to over 10% of Ukraine's GDP, and the industry depends on it, and people living there depend on it. Local and regional recovery from the Fund of Armed Aggression Relief Fund, the European Investment Bank, and other programs. We allocated over 20 billion hryvnia for 834 projects for recovery. They are at different stages of implementation, but it's all going on. It's social infrastructure and capital repairs of housing, educational and education and healthcare and civil protection and infrastructure objects, facilities. All those projects are at the implementation stage. The majority are educational projects, but we are trying to complete it all on time and to make it transparent. Regarding the combating corruption, we have several areas. International control. For many recovery projects, we are cooperating with UNDP, with the donors who help, which help UNDP. It's monitoring of recovery. United 24, all facilities financed by European Investment Bank. We are cooperating with UNDP during procurement and supervision. We'll talk about DREAM, and all the key functionality of the system has been implemented. The majority of recovery objects are in the system already and is progressing. but at the end of the day, everything related to reconstruction you could analyze in that program. One of the achievements this year, our fighting against corruption in certification of seafarers. With DIA, with our team, all those problems were completely solved, and we see the statistics, the monthly statistics, that thousands of seafarers received their certificates and they update the information in the register. All this is done, all that done via DIA app and via our centers without bribes, because before it was probably the most corrupted sphere in our country. The single system for construction, it's not the first year it's operational, but we continue to develop it, add additional functionalities. The register is fully open, and the effect of combating corruption in this sphere is very positive for the next year. It's export logistics, it's recovery of economy, housing, of course. These are the basic things which we have to do and continue, and critical infrastructure, completing the projects which were planned. Updating the national transport strategy, amendments to the law on railway transport, improvement of maritime and road transport. The draft laws have been prepared on housing. Thank you very much for attention. Thank you, Oleksandr, that you made it on time. But for every item Oleksandr mentioned, I know you have questions. I hope that at 2:30 we'll have a Q&A session. During coffee breaks you can approach Mr. Minister and ask those questions. He talked about recovery and housing. Housing is the most vital topic for people. People are thinking about the housing, and yesterday in Bortnichi the house was destroyed, which the family just built last year. It's about recovery and engagement community. Olena Shuliak will talk about that. Good morning, colleagues. I will say that big results are not possible without close cooperation between the government and parliament. And I will start with the important draft law, which is actually a law from February. This is the law which has the biggest impact on our citizens who suffered from the negative impact of Russian aggression. We will talk about destroyed and damaged property. We have 566,000 families applied via DIA. Because the housing was damaged or destroyed. It's 40 million square meters, and before the war Ukraine was building 9 to 10 million square meters a year, and in this 2 years of aggression, less than 2 years of aggression, they destroyed our work which we did in 4 years. Centers for administrative services operating, they will accept those applications for destroyed property, and those 566,000, that number will grow, unfortunately. Compensation mechanism is the register of damaged and destroyed property. Today it's a single register where we have all verified information, not only on housing, but also on all the assets of social, transport, educational, and other infrastructure. As you see from the dynamics of filling in that register, the local communities and regional authorities are actually working. The register is being filled with information, and this data from the register will become the basis for recovery of losses from Russian Federation when the right time comes.
Despite the fact that today we have a couple of steps for the program to reimburse the destroyed houses, they started getting funds for the current housing, we got certificates, and we're always improving our legislation framework. And recently we've amended the law, and since the 1st January 2024, people will be able to get compensation, people who did repairs on their own. And last week the Parliament has approved amendments to the law in the first reading, which allows people to use these certificates in different programs like Osela to make sure people can have more possibilities to select their accommodation. They can choose their city of preference. Also, they can invest into the primary property market. We are not limiting them in their choice so that they can get the best compensation for their destroyed housing. Of course, to plan recovery efforts, that's not enough, and last year we've approved the law that allows communities where housing was destroyed, that were affected by the Russian Federation's invasion. They should develop a strategic document that it's called complex restoration or recovery program. It's based on a serious analysis of different economic and environmental demographic indicators that are necessary for recovery efforts. More than 14 oblasts of Ukraine have started joined that program, and lots of communities are active participants of these programs, and we are being helped by our international partners, and I'm sure that the area covered by the program will expand significantly. And I will remind you that these programs, this is what our city documentation is based upon, and we will use a new documentation process together with the Ministry of Recovery. We are active participants of interagency group that is represented by experts, parliament members, and we are working on a huge legislation framework that will cover all recovery areas, and we are providing a possibility to use principle of digital, green and circular economy. The main principle, which will be the foundation of that framework, will be based on Build Better Back, and we will engage our international partners, other countries, other cities, like fraternal cities, for Ukrainian cities, to make sure that the recovery efforts can be sped up. We will be talking about the DREAM digital system a lot today, and this is the draft law that will make it as a requirement for the community, so that each project is open, transparent, where each person, each stakeholder and each Ukrainian can enter the specific portal and look up all of the necessary information and get answers to their questions about different recovery sites. We think that Ukraine cannot be recovered without engaging the public at every stage. Today, in the Yevhenii program, when we have commissions on the local level, 30% of them are represented by public organizations. They're pretty active, and they're not just helpful, they're active participants of the Yevhenii program, and I think they really affect the efficiency of the program. Based on the Yevhenii program, we held public consultations, and we've gathered lots of different proposals on how to improve the program, which will include amendment of the legislation and regulation. Will do that, and we've been actively discussing complex recovery before being voted for. The public can come up with a proposal before this program is approved. We will continue working on different engagement mechanisms, and we have 7283 draft law 7283, and people, they are active participants on different levels during public hearings, during advisory process, and we are reviewing all of the processes, including electronic petitions, and they should be voted for by local authorities. Local authorities have shown that have proven to be efficient, and we've seen that during the full-scale invasion, people got together, they built checkpoints and consolidated. So now they have more ways to self-organize based on the legislation. They can get funding from local budget to implement different projects. Let's not forget about businesses. In the committee, together with the Ministry of Recovery, are going to provide very important draft law 9664 and 1.5 billion hryvnias of economic effect as a result of the construction efforts in seaports, and it will allow businesses to flourish, and it will improve cooperation between businesses and local authorities. We are continuing our decentralization reform efforts. We are building a country of communities, and we're focusing on that in our committee, and we've been able to approve a very important effort that is about working in local authorities. Also a draft law number 4298, which is about making sure that all decisions that are made on the local level are being monitored. All like thousands of decisions that are made on a local level are not being monitored, so now we have to amend legislation to make sure that communities can benefit from them. We are working to make sure that local authorities can do streaming sessions for the meetings, and they should register all of their property. It should be public, and we are creating registers that are public, transparent, and of course we are implementing new principles to develop international cooperation, because Ukraine has become an integral part of European Union after its candidateship. Now we have a lot of work to do, including amending legislation and legislation implementation by the ministry. I think I pretty much fit in the time frame. Yes, you did. Thank you very much, Olena Shuliak. Now we're getting to important issues of export, import, grain. Oleksandr Kubrakov mentioned that certain checkpoints were blocked, but yesterday we received the good news. One of the blockades is over, and we know that since tomorrow there's a new government in place in Poland, and we're waiting for that process to end the stagnation, because every big truck carrying Ukrainian grain means life, means profit, and these goods. Yurii Vaskov will be talking about that, and he will represent maritime and railway industry. You will be able to talk about that during the Q&A session. Thank you very much. Export, and import capacity as well as logistics affects state's economy, especially during the full-scale invasion, especially when we're not just talking about commercial transport, but also being able to ensure that critical and military goods are transported as well. Before the war, Ukraine had 4 logistics roads, European one through 5 different countries, Danube, Maritime ways, and also crossing Russian Federation and Belarus, and we've seized that road after the full-scale invasion. As we can see from the European experience, we're using mostly road transport, railway transport, and Serhiy, Derkach and others will talk about that in more detail. So we'll just talk about trends. 62%. We had export-import routes, including 62% in 2022, 41% in 2023. Western borders were the first ones that we focused on when we reoriented our import-export routes. Then we could see that because of limitation, the amount of exported and imported goods went down on the western border, and also because deep sea ports were opened as part of the Ukrainian corridor. For Danube, we can see that 1.5% during peaceful time in 2021 has raised to 34% in 2023. And for maritime roads, we had 58.8% in 2021, 26% in 2022, 90.6% in 2023, and almost 40% of these operations were done through Ukrainian corridor. The initiative that was discussed during the meeting between the General Secretary of the UN and the Ukrainian President was Grain Initiative. Also, the Turkish President participated in that negotiations. And thanks to our armed forces, after the Zmyiny island was liberated, we started the implementation of that project practically. And on the 1st of August, the first ship was dispatched, and we were able to export 33 million tons of agricultural products, 40% to European Union countries, and it allowed us to continue the operation of our agricultural sector, and it allowed to decrease world prices for agricultural products, because Ukraine, for many cultures, is in the top 5 agricultural producers. And the absence of Ukrainian products on world markets led to the increase of prices. Ukraine has fulfilled its obligations based on the grain agreement. All of the inspections has confirmed that it was only agricultural products that was transported. All countries except Russia supported that initiative, supported the increasing of its efficiency, but nevertheless, after a year, Russian Federation has ceased its participation in the process, and in July in 2023 this project was seized. After that, the country looked for other ways to restore shipping, especially through deep sea routes, because deep sea route export has a best economic effect for Ukrainian economy and world prices for food. Thanks to our armed forces, after a series of the successful operation on the Black Sea, we've selected the best routes through to Ukrainian ports, and in September 2023 the so-called Ukrainian corridor started to function. That made sure that almost 250 ships that were dispatched, 60% of that products is agricultural products that is shipped to most countries of the world. And now the progress is even better than for the grain corridor, and it positively affects the development of Ukrainian economy. Well, it should be mentioned that the Danube Sea cluster is being developed. Before the war, it ensured only 1.5% of export, and it increased to 30% in 2023. Right after the full-scale invasion, the ministry did a series of emergency measures to reorient these routes from blocked ports to Danube ports, and they developed railway and terminal and roadway infrastructure of ports. As a result, in 2022, the reshipment in ports has increased compared to indicators of 2023. 120,000 tons per day is a record-breaking amount, and other presenters will talk in more details about that. Despite the fact that we have Ukrainian corridor is functioning, we understand that we should support Danube cluster. So with 23 new terminals that were constructed in 2022-2023, 15 more are on the way. They are being reconstructed or built. Unfortunately, Russia continues to attack Ukrainian ports. We have 184 damaged facilities, but thanks to our armed forces, thanks to our partners that support us with air defense, thanks to our business partners, we've been able to keep it going, and we made sure that all the plans are implemented. It should be noted that Ukrzaliznytsia, a railway company, plays a crucial role in our economy. And in November, they transported a record amount of cargo, which means that development of deep sea ports affects economy positively, and also it affects export and import operations. Apart from responding to emergency issues, we also worked on our water transport and railway transport policy, and my colleague will talk more about that. We approved 181 draft laws. Also, the certification program for sailors. But finally, there is a transparent system to provide advanced training for sailors. Thanks to our partners, thanks to our sea commissions and railway cooperation organization and other international agencies that has decreased participation of Russian Federation in their board and in decision-making in transportation. Thanks to our partners that support our infrastructure, and big thanks to European Commission for the development of land routes and the development of Danube cluster. Thanks to USAID for the development of the infrastructure of the Danube region and for supporting our air defense. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Yurii Vaskov. He talked about the domain of Mr. Liashchenko from the board of Ukrzaliznytsia, because November was a breakthrough in terms of railway transportation. When we are talking about 14 million tons, it's something extraordinary. But all depends not only on the ministry, it depends on every individual. When I sit in the train where we have the conductor, it's passenger transportation. Evgeny, you'll talk about that. And the conductor says that she's from Mariupol and she's really proud of working for Ukrzaliznytsia, and I hope that it will take me back to Mariupol in the future. Then that's lyrics, and we'll talk figures now. Nobody encroaches on other people's territory. We are working as a team. We have two key areas. It's cargo and passenger transportation. With regard to cargo, what's important to understand, we had a serious slump in March 2022, dropped 3 times. In 2023, we doubled volumes. But as we see, due to the port opening and deblocking the on-land border crossings, we can increase transportations, not in times, but maybe 20–30% is realistic. Especially its export. In general, UZ, the Ukrainian railways, ship 65% of all cargo. On one hand, it's our basis, and it's also a social component. It's passenger transportation, and here we are showing a better figure. We achieved the level of 2021 this year, the level we had pre-war, and the majority of that increase was due to international transport. As before the war, we transported only 40,000 people, and now we have over 2 million cross-border transportation. Is also supported by the ministry, opening new routes, negotiations with our foreign partners, and thanks to your participation. This is really important. We are also launching big programs. One program is to transport children. It's a group transportation of children. I understand that mental health of families and children is important. So 270,000 children were transported in organized groups to western regions of Ukraine. A separate service we have for our military personnel to provide coverage for their affairs. When we have leaves, in 6 hours they can buy a railway ticket for any destination. So over 300,000 military staff use that service. It's important also the financial standing is part of operational resilience of that. That's why in 2023 we launched a number of activities which include optimization of our costs and more transparent administration of our operational activities, which helped us to increase the revenues by 4 billion hryvnia. and 1/3 of generated by cargo shipments, and also transparent procurement, because we lost a lot before paying intermediaries and getting bad prices. So good prices will contribute to our financial stability. Now, instead of 20 billion loss, which we forecasted in the beginning of this year, we have 7 billion net profit, and the year is not ended yet. This enables us to progress, not waiting additional aid from the state to recover our infrastructure. We can do it continuously. As you can see, our pace even increased. 30 engineering structures we are recovering or have recovered this year. It's also energy infrastructure. Not many know, but in addition to being the biggest transport operator in Ukraine, UZ is one of the biggest operators of energy distribution. We have a huge number of substations. We feed not only our traction, but also industry and a lot of communities. That's why 28 traction substations we renewed this year. This is a great input for overwintering, when everybody anticipates shelling of infrastructure and blackouts. From the second half of 2022, we started thinking not only about recovery and critical restoration. We understand that we need to develop, in the first place, to provide for those needs of the state and business, for exports and our passengers, for good and uninterrupted transport links. That's why we continue investing in reconstruction of our tracks, and we are doing even more than it was before the war. We overhauled 273 kilometers of tracks. We are renewing our wagons and locomotive stock. We are building special rolling stock to move containers and for contrailer shipments. This is our future, not only for UZ, but for Ukraine as a country. And this contrailer train, which transported trucks from Poland, which were waiting for many days there, it will be an important political signal to our partners as well. We're also aware that UZ is one of the biggest partners and underseas of international aid in terms of large investments for Ukraine's recovery. For our partners to feel that that money is used on purpose, efficiently and transparently, it's important for us to demonstrate in practice that what we are doing in terms of transparency of our company, which unfortunately had that legacy of not very positive events. But this year we implemented a number of important steps which entail fundamental changes. We initiated audits by the State Auditing Service of Ukraine, which is underway now. Also, being aware that we need support to build anti-corruption system, we initiated a comprehensive check of the National Agency for Corruption Prevention, which is ongoing as well. We appointed a new security department head. It's an interesting experience for us, because the National Agency for Corruption Prevention delegated us one of the most important detectives, and we are fully resetting our system of economic and corporate security. we also managed to appoint, because for a long time we didn't have an officer on anti-corruption officer. Now we have that person. It's 2 weeks that he was appointed together with the National Agency for Corruption Prevention, and they're working on the new anti-corruption program. And we are planning to finalize it in January, and we'll present it. We managed to delineate. We had those two basic problems why we didn't have enough sufficient transparency. When we combined management and control functions last summer, with support of our supervisory board and the ministry, we delineated those functions which had very good results. And now it's very difficult to conceal certain things, as we have this effective control combating that. Also, there was a story about procurement. We are resetting the procurement system. We replaced the management of that in that area, and we are building new conditions for communication with the market suppliers. Also, social component is important for us. We transported over 3 million people and continue to work in that direction. What's important in 2024, we assumed the obligation to reset our strategy and to adopt in 2024 a new law on railway transport, which will be combined with the strategy and will not contradict the strategy. Thank you. Thank you. We've heard about the key areas of activities and the results of operation of Ukrzaliznytsia this year. As the tracks are not the tracks, they are tracks of hope, as well as roads. Roads are not just of national significance or municipal roads. Those are roads of hope, because when we carry military staff from Pokrovsk to Dmytro, there are no questions about maintaining those roads. Now the head of the State Agency for Restoration will talk about those things, Mustafa Nayyem. Good afternoon. First of all, the agency was established in December last year. As you know, we started operations in January. Now we have all the team, and it was not created from scratch. It was a huge team operating all over the country. It's Ukravtodor and large projects agency. Now we have a full team, and in the central office and in the branches, all the teams were reset to implement those recovery projects. So what's important, there will be a lot of words of gratitude today, because we needed a lot of expertise when we started. There is an office for capacity building, which helped us to implement the functions which we didn't have in the beginning. Those are people working in the headquarters and in regional branches. When we started this work, there were a lot of criticism that we are manipulating something, and the agency will interfere in activities in the regions. But now we can safely say that we found our role, and those regions which need our help the most, we get engaged, and we understand that in the future the agency will be responsible for the national scale projects. This is our primary focus. Transport infrastructure and bridges, with which we were dealing before the agency was created, is with us also logistics of BCPs, front logistics and recovery of destroyed buildings and settlements. There are many facilities which we cannot discuss because they have military significance. This is also important for us, and those facilities with restricted access. With regard to restoration and recovery, at this moment, there is a fund of armed aggression relief. In addition to that, we have 6 settlements. This is a pilot project for restoration by the government, which was transferred to the agency. These are 6 settlements. This Yevhenii, Trostanets, and others. It's over 150 facilities all over the country, and the number of them are being recovered by the agency. Posad Pokrovsky and Yagidne. This is important for us because it's comprehensive recovery, which includes utilities and restoration of housing. We haven't had that experience before. I mean, the state as a client, and there are certain problems we're facing. We are drafting guidelines together with the World Bank how to do it, so that the people who are doing it on the ground could use those guidelines and avoid mistakes which we had, and to approach the issue comprehensively. I hope it will be finalized in January and will be distributed among the regions to serve as an example for restoration projects. Regarding other projects of the national scale, energy infrastructure was the thing we started with when we had barrages of infrastructure facilities, and the government entrusted us with the protection. It was 86 and now it's 93 assets where we provide the first level of protection. The engineering solutions which were proposed to protect those assets were developed together with the general headquarters, and then our contractors proposed their solutions, and there are 3 levels of protection: passive protection from fragments. You've seen those big bags they put around energy facilities. All those facilities that protection, the first level was complete for 103 facilities. Second level, which partially demonstrated on the slides, they include infrastructure solutions and reinforced concrete, which protect from fragments and drones. This is also important solution for us because they provide for protection of the key grid of Ukrenergy. These are key substations, 63 auto transformers, and at the moment we have finished objects, finished assets, and by the year end we'll have at least 1 transformer protected at each substation. It means even if it's hit by drone, it will continue operation. All those facilities will be completed by the year end. And the third level of protection, of which we are not talking much, but we have that, and together with our partners we are piloting to see how efficient it will be. But as we didn't have sufficient time, a lot of designs have been developed, and we had computer modeling demonstrating that those facilities will survive such attacks, and this is the experience which nobody had in the world. We invited researchers from all over the world who provided their expertise and calculations. For us, it's the most important project because it's for the first time in the world when we are protecting energy facilities from Iskanders, from Kinjal missiles, and all those solutions were agreed by the general headquarters. Part of those designs have been completed, projects completed, and some substations are finalizing works. But it's important to prove that they are really efficient and that they will be built next year. With regard to the water utilities, water pipeline, this was a huge work after the breach of Kakhovka Dam. As Oleksandr Mikhailovich mentioned, we had a problem supplying water for 1.5 million population. This is the southern part of Dnipro region, 3 stages of pipelines which were built in the past 5 months. This will be completed this year. It will be commissioned, and then there will be some technological works to treat water, and it will become fully operational.
Right now, 25% of water supply to Kryvyi Rih is covered by this water pipeline. You can see how they're located. We have more because actually these numbers are a bit outdated. But what's important, it was quite critical for us to make sure that all of the deadlines are met. We asked some advice from our British colleagues, and they said that normally it would last for a year and a half. We understand that the government did a step forward to approve that, and it's very important for us because this is a very costly site, more than $400 million, but all of the pricing, all of the figures will be published thanks to USA, thanks to our US partners that found an independent company that will run audits on this site. And from what I can say right now, as a result of that audit, this most of the prices went down, and now we have a possibility to make figures transparent. And just to change the presentation slide, speaking about logistics, as my colleagues mentioned, that bridges, overpasses are still part of our responsibility. Last year, almost 350 bridges were damaged all over the country. And speaking about critical bridges, these are 142 bridges. We've set 115 temporary crossings. 26 of them were fully restored. And we created temporary water crossing ways, and we are purchasing new bridges, new constructions, and looking for ways to do something instead of these destroyed objects. 65% of people went through these ways to get through the border, and it created lots of problems. But for the last year and a half, we're still running our road networks, and still we have 29 border crossing points managed by the agency. And I think those that cross the Romanian border, they can see the change because it's more comfortable for passengers. But we will completely do complete redesign and repairs with the help of USA and other companies. And speaking about Yagodin checkpoint, we are going to create a huge hub out of it, and we're creating technical documentation, and next year we'll start implementation. Speaking about anti-corruption and procurement, you know that international funds is one of the critical things for us. I'm thankful to all of the partners that help us, especially those who provide funds and those who provide their expertise to assess the funds. We have a memorandum signed with NABU, with National Anti-Corruption Agency. Also, we have a transparency board. This is the first time we've engaged experts, in not just public experts, but international experts that helped us with civilian construction tenders. We ran marketing procedures, and number of participants in our tenders is 3 times more than for our governmental agencies, because it's normally 1.2. We have 3.3 to 4, 1 to 2, or maybe 10 to 20 we have 30 to 40. Speaking about these slides, the funds that we receive, all of the projects, including infrastructure projects, they were funded by our partners. Next year, we're focusing on engaging more governmental money, and we're creating our team, a project office that will raise that money based on the transparency principles that we have in place. Thank you very much. That was the first session.
I remember that day. I remember each day. I remember fear and hatred. I remember the Mriya. I remember Kharkiv, Chernihiv, Dnipro, Mariupol, Kakhovka. I remember the words. And that's why I'm here today. I am here, building peace amidst the war. I'm here for you to come back. So you have a home to come back to. I'm here for you to love. I'm here to build kindergartens, new schools, hospitals. I'm building a lot of roads. And I'm building one road, the road to victory.
I'm here, and when I'm asked what I'm doing here in Ukraine, I answer, we built Ukraine. We are all here.
Nous tous sommes là.
Vi alla här. そして皆ここに来ます。
Me olemme kõik siin.
Jesteśmy już wszyscy.
Me olemme kaikki täällä.
Vi är här allesammans.
Estamos todos aquí.
Vi sind alle da.
Siamo tutti qui.
Všichni jsme tady.
We build Ukraine.
I will give the floor to Nataliia Kozlovska. And this is the biggest panel in terms of number of participants, and I will provide 10 or 5 minutes to each participant. And Nataliia, hello again. Hopefully you're fine, and I will just try to be brief, but nevertheless I will give you as much details as possible about compensation mechanisms and restoration procedures in communities, which is quite crucial for us. Well, since the beginning of the invasion by the Russian Federation, we realized that we have an unprecedented number of destroyed houses, and we realized that restoration of such houses is one of the prerequisites of going back to their homes and being able to use their houses. In order to implement that mechanism, as Olena said, we've developed an international piece of legislation that involves this compensation mechanism. And during its implementation, we have worked together with the World Bank, and we have realized that the decision-making is done locally, but in order to teach local authorities how they can work based on that legislation we're talking about, and giving people a possibility to get compensation for their destroyed or damaged homes. For the first 2 months we've worked, and just to remind you that we've launched this compensation in May, so we worked every day with all territorial communities that has damaged houses. We've trained them how to work based on that legislation. As of today, we have 617 commissions, local commissions, that work with damaged homes, and around 400 commissions that work with destroyed homes. So lots of people that had to be trained, instructed, and also we need to make sure that they can work with the register, because just to remind you that all of that compensation mechanism is based on that register of destroyed and damaged homes. I will just name some of their figures so that you can understand how much work was done by these commissions. More than 7,000 applications were submitted, so a huge number of requests from people to get reimbursement. You know that this number A component is working, which is about compensation under 200,000. So as of today, we already understand that we've processed more than 42,000 of applications. Local authorities, after they get application, they have to go on site. They have to do a checkup and fill in a checklist. And when we design that checklist, we try to implement and cover all of different types of damages, and people need to be very clear with what should be filled in. Then a certain decision should be made in the system, and it's transparent, it's public, and we submit that information to the Treasury to provide reimbursement. This synergy between the ministry and the territorial community made sure that the result is possible. Now more than 2 million hryvnias were received by people to be able to restore their homes. Recently we've launched the second compensation mechanism, which is called Mechanism B, that involves compensation for houses that have more serious damages. Maximum amount of compensation is 500,000 hryvnias, and based on that mechanism, at the end of last week, we've provided people the possibility to get that kind of reimbursement. And it was a unique process because starting with August this year, people had a possibility to technically submit a compensation application to local authorities. They can process that, calculate the compensation amount, and more than 2,000 applications will be covered at once so that people can restore their homes. So such huge amount of work conducted by local authorities mean that we could engage them together with donors, and I'm thankful to the USAID project Dobra that helps local authorities to find out what needs to be done in different situations, if people don't have documents, if people are not in the register of destroyed homes. So all sorts of different questions and issues that local authorities get will be covered, and we helped with USAID. So thanks for that. And also we have ULEAD, and such synergy with local authorities will allow us to improve the quality of this project. What we plan to do next year. We've launched Component A and Component B compensation, and also compensation for destroyed homes. Since January, we'll compensate housing that was destroyed but that was renovated by people on their own, and also compensation for damaged and destroyed homes that are located on the occupied territories. The government has started it as an experiment, and we are piloting that project in the city of Melitopol. Based on technical solutions that are available to us, they can prove that their homes were destroyed on the occupied territory, so that people can get compensation and they can purchase housing on the deoccupied territory, and which will give them hope for the better future, and have high hopes for that project. Hopefully it will be a success and will be able to allow people that left occupied territories get housing, and people that stay in European Union, they can get to their homes, and they will be sure that they have a future in their own country. That's as far as the compensation mechanism is concerned, but the mechanism itself is something that doesn't replace all Soviet approaches in housing policy. Just to remind you that we have an outdated housing code that was basically born back in 1984. And in such a housing code, we have lots of outdated Soviet heritage, everything that's concerned with housing issues. We have started to approve a new law on housing policy, and we have lots of different stakeholders that help us. And this is an unprecedented work for Ukraine. That's a very important issue for Ukraine. We have European Economic Commission of UN, within the UN, and also Council of Europe, Council International Organization for Migration, NRC, and also we have World Bank, so lots of different stakeholders that will be helping us to form the foundation of that law. And that means that at the end of the day we'll have better European practices and world practices in housing policy implementation. It will include mechanisms of housing accessibility. It also contains mechanisms of to fund the creation of housing fund, and we do understand that when back in the days people had to stand in long lines, had to wait for years, and that means that we'll never get back to that old system. And we've been working closely with the Ministry of Digital Transformation and with our partners that support us in that reform to make sure it's digitalized. So of course that the solution will require digital approaches to make sure that people can choose the right mechanism, and local authorities should also have need to have the ability to be coordinated. Understanding that housing restoration doesn't solve all of the issues, like the restoration of territorial communities as a whole. In the Ukrainian parliament, they made a decision that helps create complex restoration program. This is a document. When we developed this draft law, we try to balance understanding of strategic and operative documents, but we realize that in some territorial communities they need to create such a document that would allow them to just stop for a while and understand what their community, what is the condition of their territorial community. They need to look around and find out if there are any landmines, if there are any problems with landowners, and they need to find out what are the first steps. You understand that they should be all-inclusive, and then they should make a decision about the priority of such steps. We have an active partner here, and I would like to express my appreciation to USA Dobre project, and this is their flagship project, and thanks a lot to them for providing with practical assistance for the communities to develop such documents, and understanding that we have a wide range of partners. They presented methodological recommendations to our communities, and this is a document, and now we have understanding that according to the law, this document will become initial data that these development plans for communities will be based on. Just to remind you that back in 2021, the legislation was amended. The land and construction documentations are consolidated into one document. So you do understand that transparency is quite important for a restoration. So these data will be initial data, and it will make sure that the restoration procedure will be done at a high quality, and local authorities will be able to understand how their future is going to look like, and spatial development plans will make sure that these programs will reflect these spatial development plans. Now we have 126 territorial communities that started development of such programs, and there are 14 oblasts they started that efforts as well. Nataliia, I have to stop you here because we will be talking about that during next presentations. You run out of time. I'm here to coordinate this meeting. So Melitopol that Nataliia mentioned is actually we'll be talking about that city during next presentation. This is a unique project that is implemented by USA Dobre when they are able to find out how much property is being damaged on the occupied territories, and people will have a hope that their damaged houses will be reimbursed. And we have many questions about processes, how it's looking, how does it look, and how construction companies will enter these territories to restore houses, and in time number of construction companies that will be involved, this number will be increased, but they are being monitored. So head of State Inspection of Architecture and City Building, Oleksandr Novitskyi, will be talking about that. The floor is yours.
Отже, ми сьогодні про цифри.
2023 was on the slogan of recovery of construction processes and in general in the market. By and large, the number of documents with which the DIAM worked, it was 70,000 last year of all types, which was 40% higher than the previous year. In terms of specific indicators, the construction permits were registered 22.5% more. At the same time, we had increasing number of rejections. The market players were instructed, and actually we reduced the number of rejections by 11% for construction permits. Commissioning certificates, the reduction of rejections is over 30%. the 2023 year statistics, which is not complete yet, compared to 2022, we have less applications for commissioning, but this year more facilities were commissioned because of fewer rejections and a more constructive cooperation. So we witness recovery of construction sector, and first of all, there are simplifications regarding the smaller facilities for up to 50 people's accommodation. The growth is over 50%. But it's not only about quantity, but also about quality. We are collaborating with the Ministry of Digital Transformation, with the TAPAS team from the East Europe Fund. Only this year we managed to implement some digital innovations. We implemented auto distribution of inspectors for inspecting commissioned objects. So it's a random selection electronic system which is not controlled by a human, and it decides which inspector will go to what region. We launched also auto registration of notifications of the start of construction works. We provided this capability. There is not a big number of registrations yet, but it's a step forward definitely. We introduced automatic checks of the construction permits at the stage of submission of documents. So the electronic system communicates about all the documents, gives you prompts of what needs to be corrected or improved to receive a positive decision on issuing a permit. So there are positive results, and the number of rejections decreased on such construction permits, because it's the technical work. You have just to put the button, and that's all. Also, standardized rejections project was initiated, and rejections are based now on objective criteria, not left to discretion of the inspector, who sometimes gave unsubstantiated rejections. And we're providing the list of restrictions for inspectors when they reject the applications. It's an important step for people who get administrative services. Those snobs are not just as administrators who scan the documents. They input a single number which is deciphered by the system, which automatically completes all the information fields, which results in better quality documents and reducing the number of rejections. Also, we provided some facilities were commissioned. Some of them are exemplary ones, especially shelters in Kiev and Zhytomyr regions. The number of documents were 202, and only 107 were commissioned. So our country is improving its defense capabilities. Among other cases which we are proud of, two biggest Ukrpost terminals, our biggest post operator in Kiev and Lviv regions. These are new projects. They were implemented in a short period, and thanks to quality communication, we were able to implement those projects. Also, cultural space in Lviv was created with financed by the Swiss benefactor who invested in that culture space. Also in Kiev, the river terminal, Kiev American University, together with Arizona University, invested in reconstruction of that building. So we're proud that we are supporting such projects. The occupation for us is the next logical step to contribute to quick access to register of construction activities in the occupied areas of Kherson, Kharkiv, and other regions. It's important that the businesses recover. We can say, without going into details, that we are contributing to development of defense sector as well. This is classified information, but we are working not only for the rear, but also for the front, for the Ukraine's military. With regard to the 2024 plans, we have an ambition which is quite realistic. In the shortest possible time we are going to implement it. It's working with mobile applications. One project is based on the existing DIA app. We want to implement the service for applications for registering and notifications about construction, so that people would not go to TSNAP, the Administration Services Center, but they apply via DIA app, and in one click they submit the application for review by the inspector. And our goal is to increase registrations by 50%, and the persons will get those certified documents. I would like to sorry to interrupt you on that. There is a question for consideration, because some people say that our government services are the most convenient in the world. They contradict the other part of our population who are saying not to substitute quality for the convenience. All administration, all foreign organizations say that all registers have to be open. Now I would like to turn the floor to Yurchenko, Deputy Minister for Education, for Communities, Territories and Infrastructure Development of Ukraine. We will talk about interaction with international organizations. I'd like to greet all our partners in this audience. It's important for us to discuss those interim results of our joint work this year. This year, our ministry continued those initiatives which we discussed with our neighboring countries, with the European Commission, to launch infrastructure projects. And as a result, we have signed certain agreements on developing border crossing infrastructure, which will increase the export capacity of our country. In addition to that, European integration. It's a huge block of our ministry's activities. Practically all sectors. Yurii Vaskov in the previous panel mentioned about the number of regulatory documents adopted at the level of the ministry, government and parliament. These are the things which lead us to the European integration. In addition, this year we launched a multilateral coordination platform for donors. It started in early this year, and we'll have 6 meetings of the steering committee of the platform. This is the tool which was created by the G7, European Commission and Ukraine's government to coordinate efforts in supporting Ukraine's reconstruction, and to coordinate reform activities, and to coordinate budgetary support activities. Last summer, our Vice Prime Minister on Reconstruction became the co-chair of this multilateral donor coordination platform from Ukraine. As of today, he has the agenda, how this platform will develop next year, what will be the basic principles, and how that platform will acquire a more practical application in various economy sectors, which we are covering in infrastructure as well. So this will be the focus of our work next year. In addition to that, the Ministry of Recovery, which was established last year, received the portfolio projects portfolio, which were initiated earlier, and some of them were initiated this year. So we were faced with the task in what way to provide for efficiency in implementing all those projects. That's why we analyzed together with other with all donors each of those projects. We reviewed them at a very granular base level, the efficiency, time of war, identified the priorities, and now, after 1 year passed since the establishment of the ministry, we have quite good results in terms of implementing those projects. Those key projects were focused in such sectors as transport. You can see a big number of partners with whom we cooperate in the transport sphere, practically in all subsectors, roads, railways, bridges. As a result, for the first time, we implemented the grant funding from the European Union. We initiated programs under a relink program of the World Bank. The first phase was completed, and we are structuring the phase 2, which will enable us to enhance the capacity of export, and this will be done via grant support of Ukrainian railways and seaports and the Danube port cluster. For the first time, we also implemented programs together with JICA. It's a long story with JICA, a long story of cooperation, but the first meaningful results, and we are grateful to our Japanese partners for that, for this day-to-day communication. As a result, we have quite a good result. Also, the next sphere is housing. We initiated the project HOPE together with the World Bank. This is an anchor project which helped us, first of all, to draft the regulatory framework to compensate for damaged property, and secondly, to provide for funding, both compensation for damaged property and for capital repairs of multi-apartment buildings. This project is joined now by other donors, and we're anticipating signing of appropriate agreements next year. Housing and utility sector, we historically had a big number of projects in that sphere. All those projects were updated this year. They started quite an active implementation stage. The results of all that, tens of millions of dollars were received by utility companies to develop their infrastructure. In those territories which hosted IDPs and the locations which were deoccupied, like Kherson city, which also joined the World Bank project, and as of today it receives this aid. It also includes a big number of projects with the European Investment Bank and the European Commission. This is for social sector, building of schools, and thanks to those projects we have selected and at different stages of construction, where about 200 facilities for preschool education, over 40 healthcare, over 60 facilities in 19 regions. This is that great input where the ministry supports local authorities in implementing those projects with the support of the European Investment Bank and the European Commission, UNDP, UNOPS. And those projects help us support the necessary level of transparency, efficiency of implementation of those projects. Also, as of today, we are doing work together with you and other partners in terms of planning our activities for 2024. The basis used this year This rapid damage needs assessment 2 of the World Bank, which was developed by the World Bank together with the European Commission and the UN, and it was introduced early this year. And we're planning for the 3rd report, which will be presented early next year. But each of you who participated in October, November to the sectoral discussions with regard to priorities and implementations and recovery and reform implementation. RDNA 3 will be the result of our cooperative work and engagement of all stakeholders to the project. We're going to present it next year. At those workshops, we focused on key sectors, and the key sectors which will be the most important for us next year. This is transport infrastructure, supporting export capacity. We are witnessing new projects which are being prepared, and they will be signed this winter, next year. And this will expand all those programs which were initiated this year. A big cluster is housing. I hope that they will sign the Development Bank of European Council will sign the project for compensation for destroyed housing. I will continue the utilities projects and will continue and initiate new projects for social sector, which will help us develop our communities and which will help us people to return the places that they left when the war started. Also, during this year, it was important, as I mentioned earlier, to provide for efficiency. It's very difficult to do during the war, because there is a personnel turnover and many people leave state-owned enterprises, they go to the projects sphere. For us it was important to retain and enhance our capacity in terms of implementing the projects. So together with the donors we initiated projects to build the capacity, which are deployed by all IFIs with regard to structuring and implementation and project management, procurement according to the IFI's principles and rules. With regard
in terms of implementation with a great level of transparency, also a huge cluster of work was to harmonize national legislation to the standards provided by our partners and also to best practices in financial organizations. I'm talking about procurement, that we're transforming step by step, making it more clear and acceptable for donors. And that's what we do right now. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Yurchenko. You hasn't exceeded your time almost. Well, we're moving on. Of course, Ukraine wants to become a leader in all different areas. Apart from being the best, like Mustafa said, in terms of hiding our infrastructure, we are trying to improve our grain logistics. And next speakers will talk about ports, about shipping, and I guess they will be talking about things that we pioneer. We're not wasting your time to list how many ports and granaries were destroyed, but we'll be talking about the way Ukraine increases its resiliency. So the next speaker is Yuriy Lytvyn, head of the State Enterprise Ukrainian Seaports Authority. Thank you. Hello, everyone. During the blockade of Odessa ports, and also during the sabotage from some countries towards the grain initiatives, Danube ports became the only way to export goods for the country. This is why the ministry and the port agency has focused their efforts to optimize Danube ports, and as... Please take the mic. Yours doesn't seem to work. Yeah, as our host said, we'll be talking about things that we did the best for the previous and this year. The task was quite critical and hard to increase capacity for Danube ports, ensure that businesses keep functioning and preventing their collapse, because they were on the verge of breaking down. The efficiency of such work, you've heard a lot about that, and you will read this in our presentation. What was done? Well, first of all, most experienced employees from Odessa ports were sent to Danube ports to increase their capacity. Together with businesses, we started implementation of more than 23 projects to improve crossing points and 15 investment projects that are being constructed. We've also improved the capacity of the Bystra channel and the Danube ports. 3.3 cubic meters were extracted as part of the bottom deepening efforts. Also, we did navigation projects, and there are extra navigators working in the Danube ports, and also we have provided guidance services for different ships, where a single navigator can guide multiple ships. Also, we opened extra cargo processing points, and it resulted in the improvement of our economy for the country. At the same time, in the Reni seaport, that's one of our smallest ports, we had more than 60 ships and barges that were fully loaded. And also we had the biggest ship in the history of Ukraine in our ports. And this resulted in the critical increase of capacity of our ports, which is up to 300 million ports. That is 6 times larger than during the pre-war time. And number of ships visiting ports has increased twice due to the larger ships, due to the amount of coals, and due to the opening of new cargo points. Unfortunately, at the same time, these ports were attacked by a Russian Federation. We had around 25 hits, a lot of assets and facilities were destroyed, and almost all of the warehouses were partially damaged. But at the same time, all of these ports, they still function, the administration functions, no people left their service, and next year we'll be focusing our efforts on the supporting of the dredging of the Danube ports and consolidating them into a single dispatch system with ports of the Greater Odessa, together with our partners, and thanks to all partners that were engaged, including USAID and JICA, EMSA, and we've also signed a couple of memorandums with US ports like New Orleans, Louisiana, and next year we'll be focusing our efforts on the restoration of our sea infrastructure, doing different repairs, and as the previous speaker said, international cooperation in our DNA 3 to restore our infrastructure. Thank you very much. Moving on. Ukraine, Danube shipping, and it will be reported by Dmytro Moskalenko, CEO of PJSC, Ukrainian Danube Shipping Company. And speaking about the pre-war period, we didn't have as much going on, and the floor is yours. Tell me more about that. And you can just take a mic. Unfortunately, the headset is not working, or maybe you can just increase the gain. If it doesn't work, we'll just use the hand mics. Hello? Okay, just take the hand mic because we can't hear you. Hello, everyone. Dear colleagues, if you have heard about Ukrainian Danube Shipping Company of the pre-war period, these are just two different companies right now. And I just want to say that when our company joined the Ukrainian Danube shipping, and that happened just before the war, the company was on the verge of bankruptcy. We had around 30,000 euros on our accounts, and the debts reached around 7 million euros. And when the war started, our team had to change our vision and development plan. Normally, it would consist of 3 stages. So during the first stage, we wanted to prevent the company from going bankrupt. We wanted to stabilize our financial operation and start repairs. As part of our new vision, we had to redirect our cargo, to reorient it to grain exports through Danube, and we've implemented the first of our vision that we had initially. And we stabilized our financial status, and now we don't have any debts due, and we've launched ship repairs campaign, and we decided to create a fully transparent, clean company that will be able to attract foreign investments. Here you can see some figures. I won't get into many details because they all published online, but these are record-breaking indicators throughout the whole history of our company. And of course, this strategy was able to attract the attention of international donors, and we've realized that in order to implement the plan, we need to re-equip the company technically. Basically, we had to upgrade all of our assets, all of our fleet, and the factory itself. And in order to do that, we need a lot of funds, because we didn't have enough funds for that. So we decided to back in 2022, we started to look for foreign investors. We've reached an international financial corporation. We've changed our technical solution. And as part of the Ukrainian Recovery Conference, we've signed a memorandum of cooperation with the IFC. And as part of that memorandum, we've did due diligence, including legal due diligence done for Baker McKinsey, and we did marketing assessment, strategy assessment, technical feasibility study, and ecological and social issues assessment, everything that's related to labor and environment requirements. Now we have a contract to cover 5 ships, and we are going to run assessment on the company. And this affects everything that we'll be doing during 2024. We'll be reassessing all of our assets, and we've never done that before. Basically, we are switching to financial reporting standards, because it's not just Ukrainian companies, because it has many offices outside of Ukraine and lots of foreign assets. Also, we have independent audit for the last 2 years, and it will make our more attractive for international donors. And also, we have MVP project. We'll be able to use our funds to upgrade our 5 ships. And it will show us more information that we haven't collected during previous stages. And we're also launching a corporate reform. It will allow us, as I already said, to change our structure, and also it will allow us to modernize and upgrade our ships. It's not a matter of choice for us. It's something that we have to do to stay afloat. And the reason is that in Europe, in Danube, we have different environmental doctrines in place that can limit access of older fleets, that prevent their access to foreign markets. Thank you very much for that. And I really wish that we had more interests towards Danube shipping from the media, because we really need to tell more about what's going on here. I would like to give the floor to Mr. Ihnatenko. Hello. Well, what is shipping administration? That's basically executive power that implements our sea and river transport policy. A year ago, Minister has set a goal to create this, to make this agency as transparent as possible. And you all know that sailors certification was very corrupt back in the day, so we made a decision to digitalize that area, and we did that. And we did that 3 weeks after I was assigned. As chief of the agency, we started to relaunch the certification commission. We launched online services to provide certification through the DIA portal for sailors, and we made the test more attractive to sailors, just like they do in Norway, and it's very independent. and it eliminates any intrusion. Now we have 20,000 sailors, officer sailors. Now we are providing certification for low-level ranks, and we'll have 10 to 20,000 sailors per month. That's the tasks that we set for ourselves. If you take a look at the slide, like the number of tests that were run, it's more than 20,000. Right now, sailors have to submit their applications through DIA portal, and that's 43% of the total amount. And we do our best to make it 90% until the end of the current year. The way it happens, so the sailor would enter the DIA portal, submit documents and get approval. During the next 15 days, they need to access doc status online service, and they will see the certificate profile to approve. Then he should register in a line, in an electronic line, and he selects a comfortable date and time, and then he can take his document, or he can send an authorized person without any problems. Here it is. On this side you can see 3 online services that we've developed in our team. That there's vnf.narod.gov.ua. That's an online service that approves qualification documents based on international requirements. A number of verification requests reached 100,000. These are different sea administrations and organizations that can access that website and check if these documents are legitimate. That's a very important service that we had never had before. Now our IT specialists developed that system. The next one, exam.gov.ua. That's a service where a Ukrainian citizen can access this service and get a certificate, an authorization to control smaller ships and sailed ships. We had almost 600 number of requests. And the other one is another service where sailors that do business trips and that work on export-import ships traveling to and from Odessa to make sure they can cross the border. And we had 47,000 approved permits. Also, we have a new contact center that was recently updated. It's a center where any Ukrainian or foreign national can get advice in his own area, in the area of interest. And today we have 52,000 processed applications.
Yeah, I would like to fasten the presentation and see the video. Many other things we implemented. It's not my video, which we're going to demonstrate. So, in a nutshell, we have reset the system. This is our vision for 2024, which we developed. You can watch it now. We are living in a time of change, and what was standardized and corrupted before now becomes available, digital and transparent. The Sea and Shipping Administration works for the sake of people. Our mission is safety, resilience and development of inland and maritime shipping. Open and transparent administration of shipping provides for safety and security and environmental protection. It provides technical and affordable services. We're changing together with you and for you. We are cooperating with international partners and foreign countries. We are implementing their experience and developing online services and electronic services. We are digitizing each sphere of activity. We prevent any chances for corruption, to apply via DIA, to get it in the easy way via the internal inland waterway and maritime navigation service. It's time for corrupt-less work. We're changing the shipping sphere together with you. Also, I can compliment to Evgeny Ihnatenko that they are renewed the team for checking vessels, but it's difficult to describe in a few sentences. If you are interested, you can discuss it in more detail. From the time of full-scale invasion, we stopped flying. Actually, we stopped flying from Ukraine. We continued flying, but not from Ukraine. And the burden on roads increased, and the number of transportation by road, both cargo and passenger, increased. Serhiy Derkach, Deputy Minister for Communities, Territories and Infrastructure Development of Ukraine, will talk about that. You can stand up here if it's not convenient for you, because you sitting so modestly. I see it from your eyes that you remember all figures from all presentations, but we promised to circulate those presentations. So I'm going to add to those figures, and we'll check how you memorize them. Let's talk about road transport. It's true that the burden on the road transport increased several-fold. Railways and the roads is actually what we can use, our carriers and our people, with regard to road transportation. You know, it's difficult to talk about it when our border crossing points are blocked. But we continue working, as Oleksandr Kubrakov mentioned. Derkach already working, 240 trucks passed, and before it was just 30. 240 is a good result, actually. So we're returning to the previous figures, and will increase the capacity. What has been done this year? Because a lot has been done. Actually, what I would like to mention is queue. Many mentioned about the digitalization, such a tool as electronic queue. Nobody has in the world in that scale. Our European partners have some good tools, but not at the scale which we have. It's really unique. We scaled it up. Today is a noteworthy date. It's exactly 1 year since we launched electronic queue system. Mustafa Nayyem demonstrated how we launched it last year. We continue working and scaling up it. It started with 1 BCP, Yarhut-Dorkhutsk, which was developed. Today it's operational on 6 BCP. So we have 20 for cargo, and on 16 of them we have EQ. All trucks 7.5 tons and higher cross the border only using this EQ service. 47,000 drivers are using it. 650,000 border crossings were done with the use of this system. We have apps. 70,000 people downloaded the app. It has 7 languages. So we have a good activity of that system. In last meeting, during our last meetings with the European Commission, they got really interested in electronic queue system. It's not about figures and digitalization of certain processes. Of course, it removes corruption and improves efficiency. But what's key here? It's developed for people. The story with border blocking, you've seen those 40-kilometer lines on the border. We don't have that. We don't have drivers living on the road actually weeks, because we have queue service, and that's why European Commission got interested in it, and I hope that we'll scale it up further. This system was presented and developed with the help of TAPAS project. So Tapas said they are ready to share it free of charge with other countries to establish efficient cooperation in terms of border crossing. Also, colleagues mentioned about our international work, and Anna mentioned about our international agreements. It's important the visa-free regime. We don't have permits for bilateral agreements for issuing permits, and it's good because this is an efficient document mechanism which helped the logistics to survive thanks to the road transport. We are going to continue that agreement, and we are trying to demonstrate that it was really efficient. Most European countries see the importance of it and supporting it, continue working with our neighbors to demonstrate them that we have not actually distorted their transportation markets. On the contrary, we enhanced their capabilities because the import from Poland grew 40%. So most of that goes by road. It's important to mention that it opens opportunities also for the European Union. Also, we're cooperating with other countries. We signed transport visa-free regime with Northern Macedonia and Norway. We're working with other countries as well. Most of them support this idea to minimize the number of permits, and all of them are willing to cooperate with us and support their country's economy. I will briefly tell you about the passenger transportation. It was not reformed seriously from 2004. We studied this problem, and we are going to publish a really cool survey. We surveyed people using international buses. Last summer we surveyed them. You know what the biggest problem they mentioned? It's in addition to the toilet not functioning and transition, but the time from origin destination and waiting on the border. The average duration was 31 hours. 31 hours it takes from A to B when our passengers go abroad, and on average 7 hours they lose on the border without good conditions. So we're working towards reducing that period of time, so that when the bus is loaded, that they go through the BCP without waiting. That's why we are scaling up the queue to comprise buses. We launched that at 8 BCPs and continue to open other BCPs for that service. We are also contributing to easy creation of routes. We opened 400 new routes abroad because it's clear that we don't have air communication. So the demand for road transport increased. We're going to demonstrate you soon. It's actually ready, the register of all routes. If you want to buy a ticket by railway, for railway, you go to the railway website. If you want to buy a ticket for bus, you have to surf various sites. And we created one single verified product with all legal carriers where you can select the route and pick up the carrier and buy a ticket. So road transport for passengers and cargo is a priority for us now and going forward. Also, Mustafa mentioned about the issue of border crossing points on road. This year we were fortunate, and the Cabinet of Ministers decided to transfer BCPs from the Customs Service to the Reconstruction Agency, and we are dealing with the policy. We see that in order to cooperate with other countries, we have to have a strategy and to give our vision how we want to expand those BCPs, because lines on the borders will not disappear. Considering the status we have and the requirements for our economy to grow, we understand that export-import operations will grow, and we'll have to increase the capacity of BCPs. We have to build new ones and extend the capacity of existing ones. So that's why we have a strategy and signed MOUs with some countries like Romania, where we specified that next year we will start construction of 4 BCPs, 2 big for cargo and 2 passenger, for light passenger vehicles. For each country, with each country, we have bilateral relations to develop infrastructure. Also, we're starting to improve BCPs. When you're approaching BCP, you often see their poor condition. That's why we started repairs. For example, Renyi-Georgeleshte-Galots is a trilateral BCP. We are trying to organize a green corridor, so that a truck or bus could leave Ukraine and via Moldova they could get directly to Romanian checkpoint. Instead of 3 or even 4 BCPs, we'll have only 2 together with colleagues from Moldova and Romania, and we're improving the approach road to that BCP. Also, we are initiating joint control. We want to have more joint controls. We have 6 BCPs with Poland. We don't need to build 2 new BCPs. We can build only 1 in order to cut costs, and we'll have good results if our border guards and customs officers will cooperate and inspect jointly. And Dolgobushevo, it's new BCP we opened for cargo transport. It was a fast decision during the transport blockade, and we had over nearly 1,000 trucks in 1 week. So we're working those solutions to improve cargo transportation and to enhance the capacity. As a deputy minister, my functionality includes combating corruption. This is probably the only organization, our ministry, where the deputy minister has a mandate to work in the sphere of anti-corruption. But as you see, all employees in our ministry and other agencies, zero tolerance to corruption. So combating corruption is not only my task, it's the task for all our staff and our subordinate units, but we want to have a complex step-by-step approach. In addition to implementing reform, we're starting from ourselves as a ministry. We initiated a quality system working with anti-corruption compliance and risk management. We created a strategy both for anti-corruption and compliance. If we talk about risk management, you've heard about it in big companies, but in state, in public sector, it's not often mentioned. That's why we created that system for compliance and risk management. We analyzed our program and implementing it. Very briefly about the aviation industry. You know why publicly we do not communicate anything, because a lot of work we're doing is it's internal, and our key result is that we have the Solidarity Fund, Eurocontrol, and which enabled us last year and will enable us next year to support our air navigation systems in the working condition, so we will be able to launch air traffic as it becomes possible. And we retain personnel. It's important to preserve the skills, because if people leave, it will be difficult to bring them back, because they have a unique expertise, and it takes a long time to educate them and to train and retrain them. Also, we're working towards creating a strategy for development of aviation during the war and post-war period, and a specific plan how to renew air traffic before the war is over. On that, I would like to thank you. I briefed you about the plans, reform of passenger air traffic, BCPs, and so these are our priorities for next year. Thank you. You mentioned about retaining qualified staff. When there was a call for applications to, as you see, the call for positions for Borispol Airport, it means that we are going to fly soon. It's important to explain that about Borispol Airport and its activities. We will talk later, but I would like to turn floor to Evgeny Zborovsky, head of the State Service of Ukraine for Transport Safety. I hope that going forward to one of our first meetings, you'll mention about the cost of life for a Ukrainian. And in every country there is a price tag to each of those incidents or road safety. Because all those countries are pragmatic. And your first slide about figures. Thank you for giving the floor. First of all, I would like to greet everyone. It's a pleasure to be in the circle of like-minded people with colleagues who are not only talking but also doing something to restore our country. We're grateful to representatives of diplomatic missions who are helping us very actively. We really appreciate that, and it's really valuable for our people. It's a good question about the cost of life of Ukrainian citizens. I believe it's priceless. Life and health of each Ukrainian citizen is priceless. Of course, you can make an economic estimations, but maybe we'll approach that in the future to understand the losses. Those figures we have on the slide now are talking about the things which we can estimate. These are volumes of works. We never had it before in our history. These figures have demonstrated the funds which we received via the state budget. We quickly and transparently provide administrative services which were launched last year. This year about 33 million hryvnia we had, and the number of fines is difficult to estimate, but it's clear that behind every hryvnia there is a prevention of violation. Because every truck which is overloaded destroys our roads, of course, has a negative impact on road safety. Each instance we see the driver who drives for 20 hours on a row without using a tachograph. You understand the danger if there is a head-on collision. And we have fines imposed at 219 million hryvnia. That's what we received in 11 months. How we achieved that? This breakdown of types of controls. Planned checks are lifted for the time of war. We have just raids, and we have distribution by cargo, passenger, and all kinds of transportation. Depending on the kind of checks, we received 338 million hryvnia. About 600 million was the value of tickets issued.
And nobody will stay unpunished if they are violating the law. And if we also provide different meetings, workshop and trainings, networking. So we had one yesterday with the ministry, and we want to be as much transparent as possible. We want to be a partner for transporters of high integrity, and we want to provide strict control for those who want to evade compliance and violate legislation. Another very important project that we do is Rate in Motion. We have different wings frames located in different spots on highways, and this project proved to be very efficient because when they did some measures, they had 29% of trucks violating the regulations. Now, every fifth driver would violate regulations. Now it really works. Now we only have 4. So wherever we have wind frames, it proved to be very efficient. This project corresponds to our anti-corruption activity vision because we've eliminated any link between a violator and an inspector, but just happened automatically. So they receive a ticket using a postal delivery service. Speaking about administrative services, this is the change that we've experienced this year, because many transporters mostly transported goods from Ukrainian cities to Ukrainian ports, but we had to hand out many licenses for these kind of transportation, internal transportations. And speaking about our plans for the next year, we're trying to digitalize our system as much as possible, and we receive lots of help from USAID and other partners. We have an electronic queue project. Also, one of the many projects is Inspector, where our inspectors will use so-called checklists, and they will use tablets to approach specific checklist, and every transporter will see that their their trucks were checked. Right now we don't have that. We're working on that, so we're trying to digitalize our services to make sure that our roads are safe. Thank you very much. Well, actually, the cost of life concept was created for a reason. For example, in Luxembourg, it's 2.2 million euros, and they have calculations in different countries because actually they use these indicators for different services, first responders, police, ambulances. So of course life is precious, but now we're going to talk about aviation. Of course, lots of Ukrainians, they're concerned with wherever they will be able to fly again. So I'm giving the floor to Oleksandr Dobrevsky, General Director of Boryspil International Airport. So let's hear his report. Hello, can you hear me well? Well, hopefully you're not tired, because we have to depart in time. That's my answer to your question. And I will start with just expressing my appreciation to the possibility to talk about aviation, Ukrainian aviation, and specifically Boryspil Airport is a major airport in the country. We used to have 28 different airports and airfields in Ukraine. 14 of them were functional, and what I mean by that is these are airports that has to ensure minimum 10 flights per year. Out of these 14 airports, there were 6 airports that ensured covered 98% of airport operation in Ukraine, like Lviv Airport, Kyiv Airport, Boryspil Airport, Odessa, Kharkiv, Zaporizhia. Rest of them, they constituted 2%. So Boryspil, as a major airport, ensured 60% of all air transportation in Ukraine. The rest were 40 and 38%. In lot of airports were pretty much dependent on their distance to the occupied territory. So the situation in every airport is different, is unique, and sometimes they require months and years of recovery efforts to get back on the track. And finally, these 6 major airports, they contributed a lot into Ukrainian economy. So they generated around 2% of the GDP, the country's GDP. They generated 202,000 jobs, including 132,000 jobs in Boryspil. More than 6 billion euros. That's a huge effect on the country's economy, and sometimes we joke that Ukrainian airports matter. So the economic effect is huge. Speaking about our strategy, it's based on 3 pillars. The first one is the protection of airports' critical infrastructure. Number 2 is protection of personnel, highly qualified personnel. And these 2 pillars allow us to be able to quickly restore, because we know that Ukrainian refugees, based on the UN statistics, around 6.2 million Ukrainians, they stay abroad looking for shelter. And again, based on the UN forecast, around 30 to 40% of these people will get back to the country when it's possible. So Ukraine needs to be ready to welcome them. Ukrainian airports and infrastructure, they need to be ready as well. So very important issue is how to preserve that infrastructure. And these airports is more than thousands of hectares of territory, lots of different facilities. I'm not even talking about other aviation facilities and companies. And thanks very much to the University of Infrastructure for support, because they provide us huge support in such hard conditions. And also thanks to our international partners like FAA, EASA, other countries, agencies. So the airport should be able to welcome Ukrainian refugees when they get back, also ensure right capacity to deliver goods. Before the war, the airport covered 85% of cargo transportation, and we think that after the war, our cargo capacity will be critical for our country's restoration and for the development of the aviation hub, because we have a mission to become highly technological, to become a European aviation hub that would make Ukraine attractive on the international market for investors. Speaking about what we've done this year, we did a good job. We developed a series of partnerships with Koika, ACOM, Coleman, JICA. These are our partners that are interested in the modernization of our infrastructure, and this will contribute in the security and safety of our airport. And last thing, it's very hard to, fit everything into a 3-minute presentation, and I did some rehearsal. So I would like to say that, just to sum it up, one of the most critical tasks was to ensure anti-corruption, risks management and compliance, and I'm thankful to Mr. Derkach for that, because we did it. We introduced an anti-corruption program that includes compliance and risk management and behavior code. Alexei, I guess you should mention the certificate that you received. We can see that we have another online guest, Jonathan Morgan, general manager of SIPS in Europe, and he will provide more details about that primary award that Boryspil Airport received. Mr. Morgan, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for the invitation today. It's an honour to be here and to hear some of the incredible projects that you have going on. SIPS is the Chartered Institute for Procurement and Supply. We're the world's largest professional body serving the procurement profession. And last year we were approached to assess the airport's capabilities, governance, structure, etc. by Mr. Konenko, Yevhenii, who is a senior member of the procurement function and one of 3 authorised representatives. Yevhenii managed the project, and we funded through the SIPS Foundation. We are a not-for-profit, and we do a lot of work within the country, mainly on infrastructure products with the likes of Ukrzaliznytsia, Ukraine Rail, etc. But interestingly, we weren't approached through a donor body here. We were approached by the client itself, by the airport, which demonstrated the client's commitment to functional excellence and organisational buy-in in terms of value of SIP's primary award. The primary award project highlighted that there is an overarching strength in systematically applying the public procurement procedures, and there's an excellent foundation of well-established functional processes. And we recommended that the airport was granted the primary award in recognition of fulfilling the requirements of this standard. So it's a big congratulations to Evgeny and all of the team that were involved, and we look forward to working with you on projects like this in the future. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot of SIPS. Oleksandr Kubrakov вручає сертифікат.
Oleksandr Kubrakov will hand out that certificate. Actually, it's so to sum it up, this is the certificate for the procurement procedure. Thank you, Jonathan, for that. You can see that certificate on the screen. We're talking a lot about procurement, and I think every person understands how important that is. And you can see that now this procedure is finally more transparent. So now we'll have a short break and we'll get back and we'll talk about funds management. We'll hear more reports from the ministry.
I remember that day. I remember each day. I remember fear and hatred. I remember the Mriya. I remember Kharkiv, Chernihiv, Dnipro, Mariupol, Kakhovka. I remember the words. And that's why I'm here today. I am here, building peace amidst the war. I'm here for you to come back. So you have a home to come back to. I am here for you to love. I am here to build kindergartens, new schools, hospitals. I'm building a lot of roads. And I'm building one road, the road to victory.
I'm here, and when I'm asked what I'm doing here in Ukraine, I answer, we built Ukraine. We are all here.
Nous tous sommes là.
Vi alle här. そして皆ここに来ます。
Me olemme kõik siin.
Jesteśmy już wszyscy.
Me olemme kaikki täällä.
Vi här allesammans.
Estamos todos aquí.
Vi sind alle da.
Siamo tutti qui.
Všichni jsme tady.
We build Ukraine.
I'll invite for presentation our last panel, Kubrakov, Deputy Minister for Communities, Territories and Infrastructure. Thank you. Thank you. Dear friends and colleagues, I would like to first of all thank all our team and the members of parliament, especially the profile committee chair, for our joint activities and developments, and we're getting quite good results from that. Now I'll brief you on the results.
It's
the selection of projects for implementation, the efficient implementation, and civil society control. We have done a lot of work together with our partners. We developed a huge number of documents. We're implementing them and improving them every day. United 24, you see in bold, it's the platform which we launched from the first days of war. The Ministry of Infrastructure played a key role in that. We launched that mechanism on out-of-budget financing via budgetary mechanisms. Maybe it's difficult to comprehend, but the out-of-budget funds could be used for recovery. And all regulatory documents have been adopted. That mechanism is functional. 17 buildings are being restored in the city of Kyiv. Also, we are going to restore the stadium in the city of Irpin. This is our joint effort with the Ministry of Digital Transformation, controlled by the Presidential Office. Interesting topic, and for the first time we are implementing this in Ukraine. In our reality, recovery funds, we have three primary sources, three major sources for recovery. I'm going to demonstrate the volumes on the next slide. Other projects which we are implementing with the support of international financial organizations and international partners, and also funds which were seized from the aggressor country. Huge work is being conducted first of all, we use that for housing. We continue our work, and the work is ongoing with the Ministry of Justice, with international partners, to search for Russian assets and funds of the aggressor country, to use those for future recovery of Ukraine. In 2023, as a summary, I can say that we had about 93 billion hryvnia, which were channeled by the Ministry of Infrastructure and distributed for funding recovery programs and development programs of our logistic connections. We understand how important it is. My colleagues were able, each of them could comment on the actions they are taking. I would like to talk about subvention. 27.5 billion hryvnia was used from the international organizations and from a relief fund to support those communities who sustained damages and were affected by the war. So the funds allocated this year for local communities, those communities which are in difficult plight, their incomes dropped and their assets were damaged. First of all, this is a renewal, reconstruction of kindergartens, hospitals, schools. We're doing everything to provide life-sustaining functions of those territories and communities, centers for administrative services. This is also an important domain for recovery and reconstruction, which allows us to cooperate and interact between the citizens and the authorities. Also important area is housing. Nataliia Viktorovna Kozlovska commented on that. This year from the relief fund we are allocating 12.7 billion for that area because it requires a lot of funding. This is done on a transparent basis. The funds are channeled directly to people who were affected. So there are no additional charges for administration or intermediaries. People get that compensation for damaged or lost property directly, and they can take steps to repair it or buy new property, new housing. In order not to waste, to save time, I will talk about the next slide. When the budget code was amended in April, together with our colleagues from the Cabinet of Ministers, we achieved a compromise that decarbonization and energy efficient transformation fund. Oleksandr and other colleagues will comment on that. Our key task with the colleagues is to implement as much as possible this development in our bylaws. Fund for liquidation. You know what are the areas and how many projects were implemented. That's a subvention which I mentioned, but at the expense of budgetary funds, about 10 billion for 303 projects were allocated. They started using that funding. The delays because of the design documents, because to absorb the most of those resources are absorbed in December. That's why most withdrawals will be done in December. And what we tried this year and will implement in the future, the key aspect is that this relief fund was financed by our partners. There is a methodology for project prioritization developed by Rise Ukraine together with the ministry. It's implemented in our regulatory document of the ministry, and we are prioritizing projects. Then we are selecting the projects. The commission, selection commission, includes the Ministry of representatives from Ministry of Defense, Education, Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Education and Finance, Ministry, in order to use those funds which are restricted as usual for a reconstruction. Dream platform allows each of us to see the monitoring, to monitor those projects implementation from the idea to the end, to keep it in focus. And for the next year we also have a liquidation fund. It has a signs of going for the next year. We'll improve it based on the experience we received this year. I would like to thank our partners once again who engaged in this prioritization process. It's really important for us. And on the next slide I would like to demonstrate a small program. Maybe there is a demand for that. This is the programs together with the European Investment Bank. They initiated their first recovery program in 2014 when Ukraine suffered first losses of infrastructure because of illicit actions of the Russian Federation. The program was signed for Recovery 1 back in 2014, and I would like to demonstrate that that program is not over yet, though almost 10 years passed. The projects are still being implemented. There were many delayed because of bureaucracy, then the COVID, starting from 2020, then the full-scale invasion. all that postponed implementation of the most important projects in the sphere of local self-government. Recovery 2 was launched in 2022, which enables us reducing the number of phases, project phases, and to reduce the implementation periods for projects up to 6 years. And the new Recovery 3 program, which we anticipate in the nearest future, we are trying to reduce it to 18 phases, so that EAB implementation, project implementation will not take more than two years. That's using our platforms which were developed to respond to Russian aggression. As my time is up, I would like to briefly comment on our corporate governance system, because money likes silence, you know, but it's not in the Ukrainian society. No, it's everywhere. I can competently comment on that. The Ministry of Infrastructure was merged with the Ministry of Regional Development. Today in our structure we have 110 enterprises which we have to manage. So we want to reduce it to 45, which we really need to implement the policies. First of all, it's logistics, and colleagues at the previous panels had an opportunity to comment the activities. So we support them in every way by establishing corporate governance system, and we're trying to implement corporate governance rules in their management. This year our team transferred 30 enterprises to State Property Fund for future privatization. Also documents are prepared for another 28 enterprises. So we are going to reduce that number of SOEs. Huge bulk of work we have now with the previous Ministry of Regional Development, because those which were under the Ministry of Infrastructure we have already resolved. In terms of corporate governance, we have approved all articles of association for our enterprises in new redaction of the law, providing for transparent competition for the managerial positions. For the Ministry of Infrastructure, Ministry of Infrastructure is the first one which set up the board of directors for this joint stock company to efficiently remunerate the enterprise personnel in order to avoid public criticism. The ministry drafted the order, which was approved by the Ministry of Justice and will be implemented from the 1st of January, which will demonstrate for the society a clear and transparent remuneration system, which will be based on anti-crisis measures and achieving certain KPIs by officials in appropriate areas. The ministry is doing its work. As I mentioned, we have 110 enterprises, which comprise more than 200,000 facilities. We have over 1,200 lease agreements, and the total value of assets is 332 billion hryvnia. On a weekly basis, we assess losses inflicted to our vertical transport sphere, and we're accumulating this information for future charges against Russia to compensate for those losses. Also, I'd like to quickly mention about our achievements. End of 2022, we planned our budgets with a negative financial result, but during 2023 the enterprises in the sector paid over 26 billion hryvnia to the state budget, and the planned financial result anticipated result was negative. Now we have a surplus of more than 9 billion hryvnia. It means the sector has coped with the problems it faced, and logistics corridors and the new Black Sea corridors and the western border crossing enabled us to achieve those results. So we have all transport modes except for the aviation, and we hope to engage it in the future as well to improve the efficiency of our enterprises. Also, the number of projects is growing, supported by IFIs to restore and enhance the capacity of border crossing points. I have to interrupt you, sorry. You took 6 minutes more of your time. Thank you. And I remind you that you'll get all those presentations. Mr. Vasil was so much engaged in his presentation. 10 minutes, of course. I would not agree in your place because it's not possible to put it in 10 minutes. So we give 5 minutes for Igor Smilyansky, but you know what he's doing when you visit the post offices. This slogan, "We inspire," it can be attributed to the Ukrainian post. They issue stamps. My favorite one was about Warriors of Light, and we can tell that about all subordinated Ministry of Infrastructure. And you are circulating your postcards saying that the light will win over the darkness. Igor Smilyansky, Ukrposhta, the floor is yours. Thank you so much. Before the new year, there will be another interesting post issued. I'll give you a hint. For the first time, we officially celebrate Christmas on 5th of December in Kyiv-Pечерska Lavra. So you can assume what will be on that stamp. It will be about Christmas. Regarding our results, in Ukrpost we have 27,000 service outlets all over the country, and we managed to overcome the negative trend which we had last year. Now we are growing, and we're planning even more growing next year. In terms of pieces, you see 40% plus postages and money transmissions. We signed agreement with EBRD. We're grateful for their support. Thanks to those funds, loan funds, our development is financed. And I'm going to demonstrate what we did with that money. During the war, we established a link with the post links with the US, and now it takes up to 80 days. It's important because at hundreds of thousands of our small businesses which are selling their product on eBay, on Amazon, it's really important to have the borders unblocked and to move those cargoes. The minister mentioned our plan is to launch a post train Kyiv to Warsaw, and it will take 3-4 days to deliver to the US. We are looking forward to changes in the Polish government to implement that. Ukrposhta plus Ukrzaliznytsia moved 15 million postages. Deutsche Bahn and Deutsche Post managed to carry 3, so we have a 5 times bigger result. It's really important. There are many New Year and presents are sent by post. Many and they have to wait on the border. Many retailers suffer from that. 2 million people received energy-saving lamps, and 1 million pensioners received additional lamps just in the past week to reduce energy consumption in Ukraine. I'd like to mention also that the Ukrpost delivers humanitarian aid from Red Cross and the UN. We received 2.3 billion hryvnia were delivered to 500,000 people in Kharkiv, Kherson, Mykolaiv regions. There is an article about our powerful bank, possibly. We have over 10,000 post terminals, and we're going to double that number next year. Also thanks to EBRD, and you see 20% market of utility payments. These are the payments which are used also to finance infrastructure. What managed this year, thanks to support from EBRD, we built 100% digital network. You see how it works. In Pokrovsk, the base point where we have Starlink and power generator, which serves the Donetsk region. So in any conditions, you know, those problems and the disruption of Kyivstar services, Ukrpost continues working because we built the infrastructure which have to be operational under any conditions, and we have such points all over the country. 100% of our territory is covered with those points, which enables us also to provide services at home. We have mobile services for that. For the next year, we call it 100% year. 100% of villages and towns will be covered with digital services. We are finalizing development of software which will enable us to provide services in every corner of our country, even not covered by cellular service. 100% of your postages will be handled by robots, which will improve the time and quality of deliveries, which will enable us to switch to paperless service. In Ukrpost, we'll have papers only where it's required by law. Unfortunately, the law still requires some paperwork. Nevertheless, wherever it's possible, we will get rid of paper documents. And another two things on which we develop on the regulator. If we have 100% coverage, we'll be able to deliver medicine and provide bank services if it's agreed all over the country. You see that 4.3% of settlements covered with banking services, which does not contribute much to recovery. We can do and cover the rest. We believe in our victory, and we have developed a container-type mobile post office, which you can quickly bring to the liberated area and start providing post services next day after liberation. It has accessibility for people with disabilities could get access. So next year, 100% of our settlements all over Ukraine will be covered with post services. Thank you, Igor. When you said that everything will be sorted by robots, I just wanted to say, do not take people from those post offices, because they have cookies and they have good packing. So human dimension is really important to support those people locally.
Oleksandr Butanko will talk about critical infrastructure, and these will be very important 10 minutes in today's meeting. 7, make it 7. Well, I'm not interfering, so Deputy Deputy Minister for Communities, Territories and Infrastructure Development of Ukraine, please, the floor is yours. This was a year of many challenges after the ministry was consolidated in the middle of the heating season, and the challenge was to complete that season successfully, because we all pay our bills and we all got used to receiving these services seamlessly. And second thing is quality of such services and availability. During the second heating season, since the beginning of the invasion, the critical infrastructure has suffered a lot. Lots of critical infrastructure facilities were hit, including heating, sewage, power generation, and our main task was to ensure its uninterrupted operation And at the end of the heating season, our team started working towards the next heating season to make sure that the services are provided seamlessly. Well, my colleague talked about the backup fund and the relief fund. We've provided that funds to relevant services, and we focused on water supply this year in order to prepare for the next heating season and ensure that the high-quality services are provided. We've survived blackouts, even interruption with heating in Kiev. Unfortunately, some people didn't receive that services at some point. So this time we came prepared, and our partners received a unique experience, and I'm thankful to our utility companies and housing companies that work hard to provide such services. Also, we focused on a regulatory policy to implement and harmonize our legislation to European directives, because this is our Euro integration obligations. And also we implemented additional regulation for sewage waters, and we supported additional regulations to ensure that these services are of high quality. Also, we focused on the implementation of our legislation on waste, and we made a long way. We tried to get that law approved for 6 years, and we implemented some European directives, and we've worked on the implementation of that secondary legislation to make sure that high-quality services and waste management are provided. This is something that we face every day. We receive these services on an everyday basis, and high-quality services contribute into high quality of life and will help to get a lot of people back, people who left the country and people who can work for our economy and ensure recovery. Also, speaking about heating supply, that's a more complicated area, and we do understand that the main task here was to ensure that the balancing is provided, because now we have some limitation in energy supply, and this law was liberalized by our MPs. Recently, the tariffs were liberalized for governmental companies and agencies, and also for those who use alternative sources of power. We faced many challenges related to the destruction of the Kakhovka Dam. This is a huge environmental disaster. It affected the provision of communal services. The water supply pipeline was damaged on the south of Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. Lots of citizens were deprived of water supply, and together with the recovery agency and other partners, we've approved some of the legislational amendments, and we've designed future pipelines, and we were able to deregulate the building of water wells and boreholes. Speaking about energy efficiency and programs, we worked on the implementation of European directives, including the basic law on the energy efficiency of houses. We have developed our strategy until 2050. Fortunately, it will be approved until the end of the year. Also, there were strategies to upgrade many buildings and water supply and sewage. My colleagues will, Anna Yegor will tell you more about the tools to support energy efficiency, and I would like to express my appreciation to our donors for support, and thanks to our partners, international partners, for consolidated support and assistance during this heating system, and they continue to do so. Thank you very much. Thank you, Alexander. I would like to get back to Igor, who said that Amazon parcels, they are blocked on the border, and well, we have problems with Kyivstar, we have problems with Monobank. Actually, Kyivstar became a starting point of the Monobank attack. Now that you mentioned energy efficiency, we're going to talk about that, and I would like to give the floor to Anna Zamazieva, head of the State Agency for Energy Efficiency and Energy Saving of Ukraine. I will be as much energy efficient as possible, and my colleague already told you a lot, and we're out of time, so I'll get down to business. Well, first, the Agency of Energy Efficiency recently started its operation, and now it's a part of the Ministry of Recovery. Now it's a central branch of executive power, implementing state policy in energy efficiency, increasing percentage of alternative sources of power and production. So we started with implementing of an analysis. So there's a National Energy Efficiency Action Plan. This is our Bible that is approved by the Ministry and EU. According to this, agency is responsible for 80% of that plan. So the first step in energy efficiency is creating legislation base, a framework to ensure that the market is functioning properly, and we worked on that. This is a stage where we can make energy efficiency efforts without additional investments. So this is what we worked on when we developed the strategy and the creation of tools to implement the state policy. We created 14 regulation acts to make it possible. There are 12 regulation documents. We'll just skip that. You'll see I have 2 minutes left. Don't speed off, because it's all right. We have some speakers left, and we have enough time, so you don't have to speed up that much. So speaking about tools initiated by the State Energy Efficiency Agency, we've came up with an initiative, and thanks to our MPs, we have approved that. Now we need to launch this fund, Energy Efficiency Fund, since 2024, to implement the European principle, if you pollute, you pay. We can implement projects where we can run thermal upgrades for thousands of households, 3,000 of public buildings, more than 125 enterprises, where we can increase energy efficiency in order to decrease CO2 pollutions and emissions and decrease energy consumption. But in order to implement something, you need to do it with local authorities, and we talked about that a lot. So this is why we opened a number of decarbonization energy efficiency offices locally in Dnipropetrovsk and Kropivnitsky region, also Kharkivsky and Khmelnytsky. And thanks to our Danish partners, and they want to join that program. They want to open decarbonization offices with the state energy efficiency energy. And until the end of the year, we'll cover all of Ukraine's territory. Developing of financial tools to implement energy efficiency measures. This is a requirement. And when we talk to the Vice Prime Minister, he said, well, are we going to attract more funds? I said, well, we don't need a dime for that. And then he said, I'll give you a green light. So you can just Google Ukrainian decarbonization platform. That was a platform created by us, but we were assisted with Leon Rivkin, Obnisa Technology, and they are here represented in the room. So I will just give you a video, a 2-minute video, and I will just tell you what was done during the previous year. Ukraine is moving towards EU. The Ukrainian decarbonization platform, UNEDP, is the shortest way to reach national goals with the motto energy efficiency after, above all users will access new knowledge and community members will run their first solar energy projects. The green tool is one of the components that will allow to implement advanced technologies. The Green University, Green U, is a certification platform where you can get certificates in decarbonization and energy efficiency. We are proud of our partners and we're working on increasing our product range. Partnership with the platform is the national quality certificate. Different representatives of municipalities and households can join the platform. Now you have the platform can help you to create a technical documentation for solar panel projects. This platform is developing rapidly, providing new functional possibilities for users. It will help you to look for funding sources for your projects. UNEDP is the future platform for energy efficiency that will allow the country to reach its national decarbonization and energy efficiency goals. Thank you very much for that. For the first stage of the platform that was already launched, we haven't spent a dime for that, and you can get certification as an energy manager and audit specialist. We have a marketplace on that platform with Schneider's Electric, LG, Bosch, Baker Hughes, and there are lots of different energy efficiency solutions, and we'll also launch the second component, financial component. Wherever we talk about support for energy efficiency solutions, we talk about funding, and thanks a lot to the National Bank of Ukraine that helped us to develop our strategy. When we talk about energy service contracts, this is why we will provide loans and credit factoring. So this is why we developed these tools, the first series of tools during the last 4 months, and then there will be a second stage, and we will ensure energy transformation for Ukraine. And next year we'll be able to complete the national plan approved until the 2030 which is, yeah, you can be proud of that. You touched on a topic that's very dear to me, and you can really educate people about that. And the only hope I have is for children, because I don't really have hope for grown-ups. So now let's keep talking about energy efficiency. Energy Efficiency Fund. Yegor Ferenyuk, head of the Energy Efficiency Fund. You have 5 minutes, and then Alexander Azarkhina will wrap up the session. Let's speed up so that we don't sit here until the evening. Thank you very much for inviting me to this conference where I can present my results. And again, in 2022, we've changed our approach, because on the 1st of August, we have approved a series of legislation acts about our fund, and we've been able to help people that had their multi-story buildings and multi-apartment houses damaged. And since August, the fund turned into energy efficiency and recovery fund. This is a state fund, but it's very specific, because we don't implement project ourselves. We basically provide support tools, and we support 2 initiatives made by people who are part of condominium associations. And this is one of these tools that we are providing to people who suffered from the war aggression and had their houses damaged. We've been implementing this project for some time, and we have some success. And this is, you know, the case where I wish we had less clients. But anyway, most of our projects is being implemented in Kievska Oblast, Dnipropetrovska Oblast, and we received 351 application for multi-apartment buildings where they have condominium associations, and I'm talking about the first and second category of damages, buildings that can be recovered. And we're talking about facades and windows, engineering systems, and I will elaborate on that later. We've allocated 278 million hryvnias, and we're talking 28,620 households, families that can get back home to their homes. The main change that we did this year, we started with a pilot. It operated on the territory of 4 oblasts. We've expanded that territory. Now it covers whole country, except for the, of course, occupied territories and the areas of hostilities. We are trying to decrease corruption risks. There are certain requirements for subcontractors and construction companies hired by condominium associations. We are running compliance and due diligence on them to make sure that the prices are not artificially increased. And there's another requirement, is there should be excerpt from the state register. We've been implementing that since 2019. It was put on hold because of the COVID and because of the full-scale invasion by the Russian Federation. But nevertheless, we are making a progress, and even this year we've launched an ability to receive applications using a simplified procedure, and 330 projects are now in progress. And even during the wartime, around 800 million hryvnias were provided to condominium associations that still try to run energy efficiency measures, trying to save energy for heating. The main changes that we did, we reformatted the program due to the some decisions from in the coordination board represented by our colleagues from Germany. And I already mentioned that we've introduced additional package that allows you to upgrade your heating system and get reimbursement. And based on the requirements of the program, that amount was substantial, and now you can get some support from the local authorities that they can do that even based on the local legislation. And speaking about the plans for the next year is to complete 455 projects and save CO2 emissions, which basically has equivalent of 500,000 of trees. Also, our plan is to expand the number of measures, repairs of public places, and another measure is accessibility, accessible areas for users that we are going to launch until the end of the year. Also, we have another pilot green team that will provide households with power during blackouts, and we're talking about batteries and solar panels and heating pumps to make sure that heating is uninterrupted during blackouts. Thank you, Yegor. Well, I guess these are the figures that allow us to understand where the country is going, and we have lots of change, and lots of people are involved in making that happen. And this is well, the ministry is called the Ministry of Recovery, but it's basically the Ministry of Communities. So it's all about communities. So Oleksandr Azarkhina will wrap up the session, and she's been talking about the regional policy, the way it should be, and what should be the cooperation with communities, because it's all about people. Can I have my slides? The first thing I want to remind is that that's right, we are talking about the new ministry. It's not just infrastructure. Well, we talked a lot about that, but also we have this institutional component. And we did a lot with the committee, but after a year of our operation, we've shown that it's a huge chance for communities and regions to create that regional policy. And the ministry did a great job proving that communities can be leaders of that change, of that recovery. But there are different aspects that I would like to touch upon. The first one is regional policy. We're focusing on 4 things here. The state strategy for regional development. We've updated the document. It's being finalized by the central executive power agencies for the last 5 months. We did a couple of meetings. We've engaged more than 300 experts. And the reason why I'm talking about that, it was very important to make it as inclusive as possible and make sure that the state strategy for regional development is part of sectoral policy that is mapped. The second work that we did recently, and hopefully you will get more news about that, is architecture of planning documents. Number 3, functional types of territory and state fund for regional development. Speaking about a state strategy for regional development, I said there are 2 reasons why we're updating that document. Number 1 is war, and number 2, official candidacy in EU. Regional policy is the policy of the European Union, and we need to synchronize our tools with that policy, and which will allow us to be ready for EU ascension. So you have a strategy project, and it will be presented late December, because we will submit these documents for approval in the parliament. But this will be the basic document that will be developed as a practical paper, and it is based on actually the architecture of the planning document. So we have to synchronize a lot. So what I'm talking about is we are joining regional policy documents with instruments of spatial planning. But when we started doing that, we realized that it doesn't make any sense without integrating budget planning. So the situation is this: communities, they separately plan their funds, and they're writing their strategies, and they're like two separate, unrelated documents. And I'm not even talking about the fact that we have hundreds of strategies. So now it's going to be easier because we have some additional digital tools that I'm going to talk about. Functional types of territories. This is another European practice. That means that regional policy should be based on territories that need a specific approach. Now we have 4 different types of territories like that. We've finalized identification of recovery territories, and we need to improve that yet, because it's a new tool for Ukraine, but at least it will help the government to approach territories that suffered from the war and facilitate their planning and development. So also it won't make sense if we don't change the regional development strategy. We've offered to decrease corruption risks during the selection process for these projects, and also there is a final stage where the public can affect these decisions. So it should be a participatory budget, and we're working with 2 key stakeholders here, OECD and our Polish colleagues from the Ministry of the Community Development Fund, and they help us change our fund to make sure it's not affected by politics. It should become a platform that will provide people with loans. And this is part of European practice, and our task here is to ensure transparency and accountability, but also proper planning. This is why it's related with the decentralization reform. You probably know that we've updated our roadmap for the decentralization reform. That was a very important exercise, because we do understand that decentralization reform was a success, but you can't say that it's completed. There are 3 critical things. We've ran some consultations with stakeholders, and we've integrated that into our plan. So there should be a proportional system of administrative overview. We need to review our mandate. These are all complicated things that require consultations and political dialogue. But for our team, it was always important to make sure that it's all database based. And these data are verified. So we also focused on our roadmap, making sure that all of these projects are feasible. And the one thing that we failed to do is to help our citizens to make money. And this is something that we need to focus on. We have more tools to do that. And now we have lots of projects that allowed communities to have better projects that are more feasible. But that's not enough. This is why we've focusing on launching support teams for communities, and my colleagues talked about that. Basically, we've analyzed our donors and communities. Sometimes some communities have 5 partners, some communities have no partners, or maybe they have a partner but nothing happens. So this is why we've launched that concept, support teams for communities, to coordinate donors and engage experts on the local level. Digital solutions, 4 key digital solutions. The registry of damaged and destroyed property. My colleagues talked about that. It's necessary for recovery. It's integrated with the DREAM ecosystem. And you can see that we are focusing on the next year. So you can just go to bi.dream.gov.ua and you can get some analytics about recovery. Also, there's some more work with multi-donor platform so that people can get better coordination, territorial community offices. And also another important thing that depends on Ministry of Finance, using DREAM platform for public funds. Another important tool is geoinformation system for monitoring and evaluation of regional development. You can just see some screenshots from the pilot project. So we're basically digitalizing all of our strategic documents that I mentioned. But the most important thing is that this system ensures proper monitoring of what happens on the regional and local level. Like how many people got education, how many people are affected by diseases, and this will be a basis, a foundation for providing enough support locally. And we started to make announcements on the decentralization platform, and this is a platform that played an important role during the reform, and we do understand that it needs to be upgraded and leveled up. This is why we want to update that state portal for communities, and this is why we are working with other projects to launch a register of local authorities' decisions and advisory tools to make sure communities can increase qualities of their decisions, avoid corruption, and ensure transparency and accountability. Thank you very much, Alexandra.